All right. Know what time it is? It's time that we talk about the New Mutants. Guess what? I've seen it, and I liked it. So let's talk about it. So, for those who don't know, the New Mutants, yes, is an X-Men film. And if you are a fan or if you were following, this was the last film that was created for the X-Men under the Fox banner. Now, after the merger of, not merger, but the buying out of 20th Century Fox by Disney and Marvel Studios, they basically shelved almost everything that Fox was working on. However, with that being said, when this movie was first started, when this movie first started getting traction, it was around 2018. That's what people, may not notice, or if you were following along as much as I have, this movie was supposed to come out almost 2 years ago. We started getting trailers for this, and the trailers looked good. They looked really good. And what I liked most about it was that it was kind of one of those movies that flipped the script. And what I mean by flip the script is that it's a movie that's not just one thing, and not even just two things, but two things you never expect to see together. A good example of that is From Dusk Till Dawn. If you've never seen that film, I believe it's a late 90s film by Quentin Tarantino, and the film is all about these two con artists, or two big time mob dudes, and they're trying to get out of the states where they're wanted and get to a place where they'll be safe. And they kidnap a family. They take the family all the way to Mexico, where it's meant to meet the people who take them to the new place. And in the process of meeting the people at this new place, or the meeting point where they're going to meet the people that take them to the new place, they get attacked by vampires. And they start working together. So it's this crazy, you didn't expect that. And this was what this film was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the idea of, what if you took superheroes or people with superpowers and put them in a haunted house? That's crazy. And it's so much fun to think about. Just the idea of putting two and two together like that have never been seen before. This film had so much potential. Now, I might do a couple of spoilers throughout this, so I'm just going to give you a little heads up. If you haven't seen it by now, and you do plan on seeing it, or you're using this to kind of go into it, they might be spoilers to you, they might not be spoilers to you, but what I will tell you is that it is worth watching, just if you want to see what might be the end of what could have possibly been their ideas moving forward for the X-Men. Whatever Fox had planned, it's all shelved. The only reason this came out was probably because people wanted it. They had been talking about it for years. I'm not kidding you when I say this. We were expecting this movie in summer of 2018. And the only reason that it didn't come out was because that's what started the negotiations of Disney buying out Fox. And then when those negotiations finally went through, Disney shelved it. But then people wanted it, so they're all right, we'll put it out anyway, but you're going to have to make a whole bunch of changes to make it where it's not so dark and gruesome, or whatever it was. Which is why we got the movie we have now. But the movie was originally supposed to come out in 2018. And it was supposed to be the beginning of a new round of trilogy. A new trilogy, following maybe these characters, maybe not these characters, but the movie really goes into where the universe for X-Men is, or where they were trying to build that universe with Logan. Now, when I say that this isn't the greatest movie in the world, this movie, The New Mutants, it's not the greatest X-Men film. It's not the worst. Both of those slots are already taken up in the X-Men universe. The greatest film being Logan, and the worst film being Wolverine Origins. That's my opinion, whether you agree or not. This film is definitely nowhere near Wolverine Origins. It's kind of maybe, I wouldn't say top 5, maybe top 10, when it comes to the idea of X-Men films you might want to see, just because it's just, I do still like that they kind of had those undertones of it still being a haunted house, but they did take a lot of those aspects and kind of change them a little bit. I don't know much about the mutants from the comics of who they're portraying. I've heard a couple of things the one character with the sword arm. I did read that she was related to Colossus, who is one of the main X-Men used in the Deadpool films. So there are like connections, and of course, every X-Men film has used a very random array of characters, kind of the same top five, Professor X, Cyclops, Wolverines, all of them. But then they throw in these random ones that, like, maybe you know about, maybe you don't. Especially for Deadpool, because, of course, he doesn't have the rights to all of this. But with all that being said, even though it's 2 years later, after we were expecting this film, even though the plot might have had a lot of different changes, a lot of reshoots, even if it was supposed to lead into more and they left it open for that still, and we know that we're never going to get any more for this, I still think it's worth a watch just for the X-Men enthusiast, even for the superhero movie enthusiast, because it is a good story. And if you liked Logan, you're going to like the idea that this still exists in that universe. This very much exists into like this path that Logan was leading to and how Logan ended. That's kind of how this one ends. It ends branching off into, okay, what's going to happen next? These are the new kids on the block. What are we going to do with them? And I think that's what Fox realizes, that Fox has to redo everything because the only thing they have that's successful right now is Deadpool. You know what I mean? And Deadpool still could go on, even under the Marvel banner. They just have to allow it to keep its R rating, and we'll be good to go. But now this film, it's good. I don't know what everybody's talking about. I still think that if we got the one that we were really wanting to get, then we would have definitely seen more of that idea of, oh, let's put the X-Men in, like, the Amityville Horror. That's essentially the movie we were all expecting to get. But we got this one. And it's not bad. It does a good job. It's got a good cast. Let's talk about the cast. So we have a couple that we don't recognize and a couple we do recognize. But the majority, I would say, we all recognize. We have the Doctor, who's probably the veteran actor in the movie, Alice Braga. You might know her from, she's in a ton of things. She did from I Am Legend to, what else is she in besides that? She was in the new Predators film, the actual Predators, the one with this other dude. What's his name from the jacket? Brody. It's going to bother me. Adrian Brody. That's his name. James Brody? No, Adrian Brody, yes. So she's in that film with him. She's in Repo Men with Jude Law and Forrest Whitaker. Like I said before, I Am Legend. She's got a good, like, list of movies that she's been involved in. And she's definitely the veteran of the film. And it doesn't take away from a lot of these younger actors. These actors and actresses that don't really have much under their belt yet. But there are a couple that are noticeable. The actor Charlie Heaton, we all know him from Stranger Things. Anya Taylor-Joy, we know her, at least I know her. Maybe you guys know these people, and I don't know if you've seen Stranger Things. But Anya, she's also in a really good movie that I love, a good horror movie called The Witch, or the correct pronunciation of it, The Vitch. Love that movie, one of my favorite horror movies, just because I think it does a really good job at like that time frame. She's the main actress in that, and she does fantastic. She's also in the Split movie and the Glass movie by M. Night Shyamalan. So she's got a pretty good record, but she's still a teenager in the game. So she doesn't have as big of a list of films under her belt yet, but this was definitely a good kickoff point for her to kind of get into something that could have been worth more. Same with Charlie Heaton, and even Maisie Williams. We all know Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones. You can have the argument about Game of Thrones all you want. I won't get into that right now, but she spent 8 years doing that, so she's definitely a veteran in the game. And then you got the other two guys. I've never seen them in anything before. I don't know their names off the top of my head, but this was meant to be like, here's 5 teenagers who are basically X-Men in a world that there are no more X-Men, and the Doctor is like running experiments on them because they want to know more about mutants. So it goes a lot into their backstories in a really good way, not in a way where it's like flashbacks or it's an origin story. It's kind of just like them bonding, and it's like a teenage bonding kind of film. I don't know if that's the original route they were going to go with, but it is the route that the movie takes, and it's definitely done well. It's not done in like any sort of poor fashion. Yeah, it can be a little tedious, and yes, if you're not a 15-year-old, maybe you'd be annoyed by some of the dialogue. But again, you gotta go into it with an open mind. And you have to realize that you're not watching it expecting much more out of it because it's the last one. We're not getting any more X-Men films out of this, and that's why I wanted to see it. Not just because I'm hoping for more X-Men at some point in time. I don't know what Marvel's going to do with it, but I do know that when it comes to the universe that Fox was trying to build, this is the last thing we're getting. And I wanted to see where they might have gone with it. I wanted to see what the hope was for what could have been another round of movies that they were doing with this new kind of era. These things kind of leading off of where Logan left. And that's what they were going for originally. At least I feel. When you saw the first trailers come out a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was like, this looks great. This looks fantastic. It looks like if Wolverine started having nightmares and it was Freddy Krueger in his dreams, you know what I mean? Like, it looks so good. It looks so promising. But, whatever reshoots they might have done to make the changes, I'm not going to sit here and be part of the crowd that wants, I don't want a New Mutants, director's cut. You know what I'm saying? I don't want the unreleased cut that we didn't get to see those other shoots. I'm just going to be disappointed regardless of the fact. This isn't like Justice League where we're getting the Schneider cut and it's going to lead to something else. The thing is that WB still has the rights to all of that. You getting what could have possibly been the actual movie for New Mutants, and even if it's good or better than the film we have now, it's not going to lead to anything because Fox doesn't have it anymore. The only thing Fox has right now is, I think, Fox News and sports, which Disney probably didn't care about. You know what I'm saying? All they cared about was all of these rights that they now have back. They now have the X-Men. They now have, I believe, the Fantastic Four, if I'm not mistaken. And any plans that they had for their film stuff is all shelved. 20th Century Fox, I don't think it's coming out with movies for a very long time unless it's under the Disney/Marvel banner in some way. And if they're not doing it, then Marvel's going to do it because they own the rights to it now. So seeing anything else outside of what the possible original shoots for this movie is, it's just going to upset me because we're not going to get to see what it could have possibly been. Like getting to see the Schneider cut, like I said, we're going to see what could have been, which might lead to more because WB still has those characters and Zack Snyder's still around. Like these directors, you're talking 2 years, guys. Like 2 years waiting for a film, most directors give up. Most scriptwriters give up. Most production companies Look at how many directors The Flash has gone through. The Flash movie has gone through so many directors that it hasn't been able to start filming yet because they can't hold a director down for more than 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, they're probably already over it. Marvel don't care. Disney don't care. The directors are probably just happy the film went out. I don't know how the film did in theaters. I do know that it's getting some mixed ratings online. A lot of like 5 stars and 3 stars and things like that. And I get it. Almost every X-Men movie gets a bad rep just because Fox did not do right by these films. And every now and then they did do a good job. Days of Futures Past, that's a hit. Deadpool, that's a hit. I'll even go out of my way and I'll say it. The first X-Men was a hit, even though to this day I'll still never get why Toad was in it. Like that's just a very random character to put in. But again, we're talking about what the rights are and how you make characters fit and whatnot. It's whatever their choices were at that point in time. But what I am going to say is New Mutants isn't the worst X-Men movie of all time. All right. That trophy belongs to Wolverine Origins. With that being said, I think you should try to watch this film, especially if you've been watching all the X-Men films up to this point. You're gonna do yourself an injustice by not seeing this. That's just my opinion. But again, that's what you're here for, right? All right, guys. Well, I'll catch you in the next one.